Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply, and this is the Leather Element. If you've got a good question for us or a good idea for a Leather Element, drop it in the comment box below. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So let's wet form a diamond plate pattern. This is a cool design, but we all know somebody that's a blacksmith or metal worker or works with heavy equipment or machinery. This is going to be the perfect design for a project for them. All right, let's step over to our pattern table, get started. There are so many ways we could go with this design. Sky is literally the limit. We'll come back to that. We'll talk about that. But for now, let's do our diamond plate. Well, for two reasons. First off, that's what we're looking for. But secondly, this looks like it could be very difficult to measure out and lay out. Actually, that's the point of using the diamond plate. This is so easy to do. Let's start right here though. Let's get a feel for how we're measuring this out. Then we'll jump over to our main cutting table, okay? So let's take a square, just a box, but this needs to be equal. This is a 6 by 6. We can do 5 by 5, 8 by 8. It doesn't matter as long as we've got a box, all right? Now, if we go simply from corner to corner, and then with that, let's just draw a line at 1 inch increments either side. Same here, either side, okay? Well, we're gonna get diamonds. Well, actually, we've just got squares. Well, if you want to go that way, you certainly can. But let's do this. Let's start from scratch. So let's draw out our 6 by 6 inch box, but there's a bit of a trick here. Yeah, I'm going to have ink all over me. So let's go 6 by 6. Okay, now we need everything here to be as uniform as possible. So what I want to do, I know both of these lines are square to each other. So let's come down and let's square to this line. We're coming out to 6. Okay, we know this line is square, so let's square from that. And there we go. It's as easy as that. We've got a good clean box, absolutely symmetrical. Now, let's mark across our top and across our bottom. Let's make marks at every ½ inch increment. Okay, we've got that. So, as we saw on this piece, if we just go corner to corner, we're going to get squares. All right, let's cut that in half. Let's come down. There's our center mark. Okay, let's take this line down. Make sure I've got my center mark there. I didn't mark it large enough. There we go. Let's bring this line down to that point. Okay, let's mark all the way across on our ½ inch increments. Now, I haven't gone into great detail with metric conversions, well, simply because it's the same thing. We're just working in halves. And let's do one more. Okay, now let's do the same thing over here. We're going to go from our center mark. Let's make sure we've got it. And down to that corner. And let's do our ½ inch increments, and one last line. There we go. Okay, so there's our diamonds. Now, we're going to use this both to cut out our diamonds, but also to lay out our form. So we've got an idea of what we're doing. Let's jump over to our main table, apply this to our leather and our form. We're actually going to use leather to create part of our form. Well, we've got it in our shop. We don't need equipment. We know how to work with it. And all told, it makes a nice form. But I want to use an 8 to 9 ounce. I want to use something a little bit thicker because we're going to be pressing this in with our fingers. And if we've got a little bit thicker leather there, it's going to give us a better impression. Now, right here, I've got a 5 by 5. It doesn't matter what size piece of leather we're using. Like with this, if this is 7 inches long, all I'm going to do is come down 3½ inches. And there's my line. So as long as we're working in halves, doesn't matter what size our leather is. So right here, across the bottom and the top, let's mark our 1½ inch increments, but let's make a larger mark on our center line. Okay, well that's familiar. We've worked with this before. All right, so we don't want to go corner to corner again. Let's pay attention here, which I am notorious about not. Let's just go from one corner down to there. Good. Now let's work our way across. Okay, we've got that. Now, if we need more diamonds or we just want to make better use out of this, really these are basically just ½ inch bands. So we can lay this in and make as many lines as we want. We can get all kinds of diamonds out of that. In fact, let's just do one more on that side. Good. Now, when we go to cut this, I don't want to cut from edge to edge. I want to leave some of that edge in there. That'll make sense here in just a minute. So let's do our best to split our ink lines. And our last line there. Okay, let's flip over, do the same thing, go in this direction. And one more cut. Yeah, I got a little overzealous on that one line, but the point there is that now we have perfect diamonds and as many as we want. Okay, let's reset here, work on our form. We don't have to be a woodworker to make great molds. In fact, here's some great examples right there. That's just scrap leather. I've used contact cement. That makes a good cell phone mold. In fact, we saw that in a video, very sturdy. Now this is going to make sense. We're using veg tan up here. As we press wet leather into this, well, this is going to get wet too. And those corners, they're going to start to soften or round. Well, we can always use some of our pattern sheeting. In fact, that's a pouch flap. If we use our pattern sheeting on top, that's not going to happen. Well, here's two more extreme examples. Right here, we can absolutely use leather for our base. And we actually saw this in a video. We used this in a video. We're using cardboard here. Now, is that going to last forever? No, it's not. But for maybe 2-3 projects, absolutely. So right here, to save us a little time, I've got a piece of wood, and I've marked this exactly the same way we did here, except I've given us 1-inch spread instead of 1/2 inch. So therefore, we're going to have the same distance between diamonds as across. So let's start right here. We're going to use some of our Leathercraft cement. This is strangely strong cement for leather. If you have to take one of these off, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But let's take our diamonds. Good, and let's drop that right in the bottom or top of any of our diamonds. And let's press that in, and if we've got a little glue on the outside, not going to matter, that's going to dry. Okay, let's go to a second. Right in the bottom of our diamond. Good, so I'm going to do the balance with diamonds. And laying in our last piece. Now we do have a little excess glue. This will dry, but let's just take a piece of scrap and clean some of that off just so it doesn't transfer to the back of whatever we're going to form. Okay, well that looks good enough. Now we're not going to the edges. We're just simply trying to get a feel for how to lay this out. Well, once we've got that down, well now we can make an actual pattern. This is for a pouch flap. In fact, you can see right here I've left a diamond off so I can drop in a snap or some type of a closure. Cool trick though too. If we're going to use this for our wet form pocket, we can actually press our design in and wet form the pocket all at one time. All right, so let's do this. Let's reset here. Let's cut a piece of leather, see how it forms. Now I said let's wet form to this piece, but in all honesty, we just used this to get a feel for how to lay this out. Let's jump over to a pouch flap. Now our first thought, we need to overcut our leather because it's gonna draw in when we form this. Actually, we don't need to. We're gonna stretch the leather. But here's a big point. So with our leather weight, I'm gonna go with, that's about a 4 to 5 ounce, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. Here's the point. The heavier weight the leather, the less form we're going to get, but the more durability. Going in the other direction, the lighter the weight, the better the form, but less durability, right? So let's go with a 4 to 5. That's a good pouch weight. So let's start right here. Let's get this leather good and wet. Okay, we've got ample water in that leather. I can feel it. It's become very pliable. So let's give that just about 5 minutes. Let some of that excess water wick out. We've given our leather some good dry time. Now, what I meant to say was let's give this 5 or 10 minutes, let some of that excess water evaporate as opposed to wick. But let's drop this right here. I can feel it. It's become very pliable. Let's lay this right on the edges. And let's simply start in the middle with my finger, with my thumb. I'm going to start pressing down around the diamonds. So there we go. We've got one started. Let's work out from there. So really just making one pass with our finger, we're actually starting to get a pretty good mold going there. Now tools. I'm not really big on the bone, simply because that is going to leave marks wherever I put it down. Well, a dowel not so much, and I've got to round it in here. So what we can do, let's take our dowel and press that between our diamonds. Same right here, maybe roll it a little bit. I'm not leaving any tool marks there, but now let's go across, and then we'll come across this way. And let's hit the outside as well. Okay, we're starting to see a pretty good form. So what I'm going to do, this is going to take multiple hours to dry. But over, say, the next 45-50 minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over and I'm going to work that down maybe every 10 minutes for, again, like I say, maybe 45-50 minutes. And let's just get the best mold we can. Then I'm going to leave that overnight, let that dry completely, but I'm going to leave it on the mold. Now, here's another good point. We can absolutely wet form with dye. It's a mess, but if we've got time constraints, we can absolutely do it. We've given this ample dry time. In fact, I'd let that dry overnight, but isn't that a cool design? Now, we could get a better impression if we use a male and a female mold. That's a lot of extra work, but if you want to go that route, you certainly can. Here's a cool idea. Let's take our top grain and flip that. What's going to happen there? Actually, we're going to get a very cool design on that as well. This pouch, it's been to a few shows, so it's starting to get a little bit rough, but that gives us a good idea of what that would look like. All right, speaking of options, let's jump back to our pattern table before we finish out, talk about some possibilities. I love this design, but in all honesty, I haven't really taken the time to explore, so we don't have a lot of great samples to look at. But that doesn't mean we can't dream and talk. Well, right off the bat, we've gone with a simple diamond in a simple configuration. How many different shapes could we go there? Rounds, hearts, crosses, so many possibilities there. And for decoration, again, I love the spots. We saw that coming, right? But we could drop a spot on top. That looks cool. Or how about a spot in between our diamonds? That would actually give that a tufted look. Now we could go with a light brown dye. Come back in, say block dye, to where we're only hitting the diamonds with a darker color dye. That would really accentuate the diamonds. Now stamps. Probably not the best way to go. If I were going to try to drop a stamp on top of our pattern, well, in fact, we know right where that stamp needs to land, right? Well, when we wet form this, that's going to make that stamp back out. We could stamp it, wet form it, just before we let it dry, take that stamp and maybe with hand pressure, press it back in. That'd give us a little better design, but all told, stamps probably not the best way to go. One more point. That's a little bit flimsy, a 4 to 5. We want a lighter weight to get a better mold. Well, if we need a little more durability, we can simply back that with another piece of leather. That'd give us everything we need. Now, we could drop in our diamonds on our backing piece of leather. That would give that some exceptional durability. But again, unlimited possibilities. Take this ball and run with it. What a great craft. Unlimited possibilities. In fact, there are not enough hours in a day to make all the designs I want to make out of leather. I hope you feel the same way. But I hope this is good information for you. Thanks for taking time to watch The Leather Element. Good luck with your projects.